with a knife.
Kan u dan die beweging as u kan van Kellenhof beskryf met die mes?
Kelly het uitgekomen met een mes toen Kelly naar Buddha toe gegaan.
Kelly came out with a knife
En ze zei,
went to Buddha.
Buddha, zij is die zomaar nog vrek.
Then she said, I'll stab you to death.
The U.S. government has begun releasing a trove of documents into the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, a case that still sparks conspiracy theories over 60 years later. The release follows an executive order in January by President Donald Trump that required the unredacted files in the case to be made public. Historians do not expect many groundbreaking revelations in the records, which they were combing over the last night's release. Trump has estimated 80,000 pages of documents will be unsealed. Recapping the top story, Health Minister Dr. Ron Mutsoledi says government has set a goal of testing 5 million people for TB each year. I am on Delambana for SFM News headlines at 1:30.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It's always, hey, choose my kettle. It's this or that, Baba. But why? Why can't I service my car and pay for my wedding service as well? With a Nedbank personal loan, that's a rhetorical question because I can do both with access of up to 400,000 Rand at the best interest rate that is customized for me.
Don't let cash flow hold you back. Apply for your Nedbank personal loan online today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Slangs and Negati are in a big search for their first win, while the indomitable Lions want to hold on to the summit of Group D. The bottom of the table clashes with the top. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Cameroon. This Wednesday, 19 March at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1.
MEC for Finance in the Eastern Cape Province, Mlungi Simvoko, will on the 25th of March 2025 present the 2025-2026 budget at the provincial legislature in Bishu at 10 a.m. This comes at a time when government has committed to growing the economy of the province, creating jobs and improving the lives of the poor. You can follow them on social media pages on Facebook, MEC Mlungisi and Eastern Cape Provincial Treasury, on X at EC Treasury, and on LinkedIn under MEC Mlungisi Mvoko.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Sana ezintombini ngisizwa ngindizela emafini Maungazwa indlela ngiphatha ngayo na ungaxakeka Maungazwa indlela ngithanda ngayo na ungazizwe Nomeka kanjalo nomengena lutho kodwa uthando lwakhe nakupenda sana kanjalo nomengena uthando lwakhe nakupenda sana we nomeka kanjalo nomengena uthando lwakhe
It is Malay coming through with Chimsoro. That is how we kick off the show this afternoon on an upbeat, up-tempo note. Hopefully you're having a super day. The week is flying by pretty fast, right? Can't believe it's already Wednesday today. Midweek we are. But yet again, this first quarter of the year is also just galloping away. And maybe that tends to happen the older we get and we're consumed with all the stresses and challenges of life. So time just seems to either gallop or really drag out. Let's get on with the show. We've got a lot of conversation coming up today. We're going to be exploring rooibos as a potential shield against petrochemical exposure for petrol attendants. And this is coming off the back of some research that is being undertaken by the National Institute for Occupational Health, looking at whether or not rooibos could be beneficial, in fact, in mitigating the harmful effects of petrochemical exposure amongst petrol attendants in South Africa. So this could be a groundbreaking study indeed. We also have some feel-good stories today. We're going to be catching up with the CEO of Mrs. South Africa, who's been nominated for the Woman of Stature Awards. We'll find out about that award and, of course, get a glimpse into her journey at the head of Miss South Africa, but also a woman, Mrs. South Africa rather, but also a woman who seems to really play in the space of empowering women. Remember Chef Kamani Patha? Well, she was on MasterChef SA, winner of season 2. We're going to be catching up with her. She's involved with an organization in some school nutrition programs. So we'll find out more about what that looks like. And one of my favorite museums, Iziko Museum of South Africa, recently launched the... I don't want to say the acronym because I'm probably going to say it incorrectly, right? So ISIM 200, but we'll find out from the acting CEO of Iziko Museum, about that particular milestone. Here's a conversation for you on the other side of 2 o'clock. It's a conversation. It's part family meeting, but we're also going to be talking to someone who works in the space. So I want to find out from you the cost of funerals in South Africa. How do we make funerals more affordable? That's really the question. How do we make funerals more affordable? And I think this also is a moment for us as black and brown people to reflect a little bit on how we go about conducting funerals, because it's become part of our social culture now that funerals must be bigger, better, flamboyant, must have all the trims and the frills and the thrills. But that is very, very expensive. Very expensive. So I'd love to know from you, what's your sentiment around how we do funerals, particularly as black people? I'd actually also like to hear from the other races, white folks. how do you all do funerals? How do you keep funeral costs down? Because I get the feeling that between black people, black South Africans and white South Africans, Caucasian South Africans, how we do funerals is very different. And one seems a bit more cost effective and the other one not so much. So I'd love to know. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line. 086002032 is the number that you can call us on for that one. That conversation is coming up after 2. But I'd love to know your reflections right now. How do you do funerals, or how should we reconsider funerals in a way that's a little bit more cost effective? Because we are going to be having that conversation after 2 around the cost of funerals in South Africa and how do we make them more affordable. It's just gone 1:15. We're going to take a quick pause and then we'll come right back.
Masandawana ladies want to emphasize that they are the conquerors of women's football Mzansi. However, University of the Western Cape ladies are confident they will walk away with a pass mark called victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League, the meeting of powerhouses. Mamelodi Sundowns ladies versus UWC ladies on Saturday 22 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
Okay, let's get into our first topic of conversation today, and we're exploring rooibos as a potential shield against petrochemical exposure for petrol attendants. And this comes on the back of some groundbreaking research that has been undertaken by the National Institute for Occupational Health. So there's a groundbreaking study that's exploring whether or not rooibos can help mitigate the harmful effects of petrochemical exposure amongst petrol attendants in South Africa. And this research is led by our guest, Dr. Kerry Wilson. How are you doing today?
Hi, lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for the time, Dr. Kerry. Much appreciated. So let's get into it. I mean, firstly, let's try to understand what led to this particular study that you've undertaken with your team.
So the National Institute for Occupational Health looks to advise industry and workers on protecting their occupational health. So we've been doing some projects looking at informal or vulnerable workers, and we thought about the petrol attendants who spend long hours each day working at the petrol pump, being exposed to petrol fumes. But we also don't just want to describe the problem, we definitely want to look at recommendations or interventions that could possibly help.
And whilst looking at that, let's maybe also just try and understand, because I must admit, I think a lot of motorists, and we have, I don't know how many millions of motorists on the road, we don't think about the effects, right? We don't think about the risk factors that are associated with being a petrol attendant specifically. And what are those risk factors that potentially petrol attendants and those who work in, the petrol service industry could be facing or do face?
So petrol and diesel are volatile liquids, which means that anyone standing close to their source can be breathing or inhaling some of these harmful chemicals. Secondly, petrol attendants are around vehicles all day and so are exposed to exhaust fumes, which we know make up some of the pollution we have in our cities. And it's the long hours that they spend in these situations that really puts them at risk.
The exposure to that environment, the risk factors that come with it, because I know that your study is looking at how specific hazardous chemicals may lead to specific and significant health challenges. Walk us through that.
So, yes, acute high-level exposure to particularly the BTEX organic chemicals in petrol can lead to headaches, dizziness, maybe even passing out. But luckily, that level of exposure doesn't occur very often. So we're actually more interested in the long-term, lower-level exposures because in other studies globally, these have been linked to respiratory diseases, central nervous system disorders, changes in liver or kidney function, blood disorders, and sometimes even cancer.
Okay. So when you speak to us about long-term, lower-level exposure, what does that speak to?
So that's exposure below our regulated occupational exposure limits. And there are different limit sets for the different chemicals that you may be exposed to in workplaces. But so generally, lower than what is regulated.
So would this mean then petrol attendants, just in us trying to understand, obviously, petrol attendants would fall into the category of the long-term lower level exposure because that's where the most health risk factors would be?
Yes, the most long-term health risk factors, where it's not always easy to link those outcomes to work exposures.
I see. Okay. And then you mentioned that there's been other, internationally, there's been similar studies that have been undertaken. And what have been some of the findings from those studies, and how have those particular territories almost moved forward after, getting the data? How have they then translated the data into change or into some kind of policy shift that is beneficial for those who work in the space, if any?
So you probably be aware that many of the developed countries require car owners to pump their own petrol. So that means that no person gets particularly long exposures to petrol, and that's one solution. Other studies in Africa have shown sometimes higher level of exposures than we've seen here in Johannesburg's petrol stations. But solutions haven't been forthcoming, partly also because, like I was saying, the difficulty with confidently linking some of the health outcomes to only the petrol exposure.
So given those difficulties then in linking the health outcomes to only petrol exposure, what becomes the purpose of studies such as this in the sense of how do they then sort of shift the necessary change for petrol attendants who work in the space and who are directly affected by these fumes?
So the mechanisms by which these fumes can cause damage in the body is through oxidative stress. And so we've decided to focus on that more short-term outcome to see what's happening in terms of the petrol attendants' oxidative stress, but also then by providing an antioxidant supplement, we're hoping to see an improvement in their oxidative stress and therefore a possible improvement in their health in the long term.
All right. So herein then enters the rooibos.
Yes.
Okay. School us about that. How rooibos becomes this sort of potential shield in this case.
So we obviously took South Africa's economic climate into account, and so there would be no point in looking at fancy air filtering systems or fancy masks for low-level exposure. And so then that's when we decided to look at intervening more during the disease process. And tea has been recognized for a number of years as a good source of antioxidants, tea and coffee for that matter. But ordinary tea and coffee contain caffeine, which is often not recommended for people with certain health conditions. And that's where rooibos comes in. So it has many of the antioxidant properties of ordinary tea or coffee, but without the caffeine, and with some extra bioactive compounds that work in other ways to protect your health.
So how would this then be implemented? So you look at the study. So how does it look? Are you in the sample? You know, the practicalities of it. You have X amount of petrol attendants, and how are you guys conducting the study? Are they drinking copious amounts of rooibos tea, or?
Well, hopefully not too copious, but we enrolled about 100 petrol attendants. We collected blood samples from all of the attendants before we gave half of them enough tea to drink 3 cups a day, including weekends, for 6 months.
Okay.
And now we're back in the field collecting more blood samples so that we can compare people's oxidative stress before and after drinking the tea. And then we have some controls just to see if perhaps something else changed during the time period of the study.
So the 6 months period is up or approaching, and have you started consolidating some of that data?
We're busy collecting the last samples at the moment.
Okay. Any indicators that you can share right now, or expectations from your initial assessments?
So in terms of general health that we looked at our baseline assessment, there wasn't a high burden of disease in petrol attendants, but that may also be because some of them were quite young, some of them hadn't been working for many years. So we will have to wait for this more detailed investigation of actual oxidative stress in the petrol attendants. And one thing that has been reassuring is that although our petrol attendants are exposed in petrol stations, we haven't in our sample of measurements detected any particularly high exposure level.
Okay, so that's a good thing.
Yes.
Okay, and then folks always want to know, the discourse on social media, especially when studies are undertaken or when people are looking at particular focuses for their PhDs, is then how do we use this study and this research in the real world? Has yourself and the team thought that far in terms of once you've correlated all the necessary findings and cross-checked and double-checked your information and data, is this something that you're then willing to share with the petrol industry, perhaps in the hopes of trying to implement something, whether it's more tea breaks for the attendants?
Yes, so all the findings from our study will be shared with the petrol industry and with our initial participants. And we're hoping, if we're seeing positive results, we're hoping this will then spearhead a slightly larger study to start looking at. So although we gave our petrol attendants 3 tea bags per day, other studies have looked at as many as 6 per day, and so we would, before we could confidently step out and say you should drink so many cups of tea a day, we would need to sort of look at we call it dose response. How much tea do you need to have a good effect?
Gosh, you.
But we may be able to indicate that, and not necessarily just tea, but that an antioxidant may be helpful.
It sounds like a fascinating study, Dr. Kerry, and we look forward to hearing about those final results. That was Dr. Kerry Wilson from the National Institute for Occupational Health. Another reason, I think at this point in time, we've probably given you at least a dozen reasons why you should be drinking Rooibos every single day. I'm a big fan of it. So, and I've upped my dosage since our last guest last year. I think it was with the South African Rooibos Growers Association or some fabulous body. I can't remember, but he definitely made me go up my my Rooibos intake. So now I put 2 tea bags in a cup, not just one. It's just gone 1:30 on daylight. Standing by.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says government has set a goal of testing 5 million people for TB each year. This is part of government efforts to reduce new TB infections and curb deaths. The legal representative for the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies has argued that ETV Media is not litigating to protect the interest of the poor in this case, but for commercial interests. And Turkish authorities have detained President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's main political rival, the popular mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu. Dozens of other politicians, journalists and businessmen have also been arrested in raids overnight. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Very important that what the Minister Aaron was briefing this morning around TB, and very important to go and get tested. He made an analogy, in fact, about TB behaving like a diva because you just never know. It can be very silent and it can be quite a polite disease. So, if you're feeling symptomatic or you suspect or you've been with somebody or an environment that has you thinking that maybe, you can go out there and get a test just to safeguard yourself and your family. Right now, we are going to be catching up with the CEO of Mrs. South African Ace Models International, Joni Jacobs, who's a nominee for this year's prestigious Woman of Stature Awards as CEO of the Year. And Joni has a long career in the space of, I guess, beauty and lifestyle management. Joni, I don't know how we would categorize. In fact, as much as I've played in these spaces, but I don't know, the sector category that we would say. Would we say beauty and lifestyle?
Beauty and lifestyle, I suppose, yes. I always laugh when people ask me, what do you do? Because it's a loaded answer. But yes, it's the beauty industry, it's the entertainment industry, but it's also about people, as you say. It's lifestyle. So yeah, it is a little bit loaded.
Thank you so much for the time, by the way. We appreciate it. And I think, a lot of people also misunderstand what it takes to be a success in a space like this, right? Because it's not seen, careers and sort of businesses in these spaces are oftentimes not given the due respect. But being somebody who comes from the pipeline of modeling and entertainment and pageantry and all the rest of it, one fully understands the sort of dedication and the magnitude it takes to get a business like this up and going, and then to sustain it for years on end, and not only sustain it, but to ensure that it is successful, and that it continues to grow, and that it upholds its reputation.
Absolutely. I think you said it so well. I think, the first thing is, also coming back to what industry it is, I really try and steer away from the word pageant, and it's just the pageant industry, because it's so much more than that. And, it's also establishing something like a beauty pageant, something like a modeling academy, and, turning that into a business as such, and running it as a company and as a business and as an enterprise. And,
as you say, the sustainability of it, it is so much more than just a pageant. And again, when it comes to specifically Mrs. South Africa and the pageant industry, we also prefer to refer to it as a female empowerment program. And the same goes for Ace Models, whereby it is very much, about empowerment and upliftment and leadership and the skills and working with people's dreams and their aspirations and being also in a position to be able to impact others, I think is a huge privilege and something that I do do not take lightly.
What does it take to be successful in this world? What does it take to sort of build a brand that is recognized domestically and internationally, but one that is also respected for the business acumen behind it?
Yeah, so I think, Bridget, when it comes down to success and the path and the secret, so to speak, to success, yes, hard work and determination. I always tell the story where when I started out in my 20s, at the age of 24, I started building Ace Models, and I wrote literally in paint. I took black paint and I painted on my wall, with hard work and dedication, you can achieve anything. And yes, that is absolutely true. But I think what I've learned over the 20 years in doing what I do and the 20-year span of my career is that the true secret that sets you apart from others, especially as an entrepreneur, is not giving up. It's the resilience. It's getting back up when you failed. It's getting back up when you've, had a challenge and overcoming challenges. So it truly is that secret ingredient, I think, really comes down to resilience and just not giving up and, having that grit at the end of the day.
One of the things that I think is nuanced also to owning a model agency, for instance, is the fact that not only are you dealing with, young men and women who enter the space and you are helping them shape and guide their dreams, but to a large degree, you are also bringing people in when they're still at that very susceptible stage of life. And a lot of the successful agents that I've known are folks who also take on the role of almost being a surrogate parent.
Absolutely.
And people don't understand that's sort of the responsibility and the heaviness of that burden that is laid on yourself and your agents.
Absolutely, yes. No, I get to see that every day, and especially, as you say, with Ace Models, working with, young people, young boys and girls at the start of their career, with big dreams, with aspirations, with also having to deal with the challenges, that they go through as, teenagers, as young people in their 20s. So yes, it is so much more than just representing them as an agent or, teaching them certain things. It truly is a role that you take on as their mentor, as their, role model. And, again, like I said, it's not something that you can take lightly because you are working with people's lives and their dreams. So, yeah, it is. It's an incredible journey to be on and an incredible position to be on. It's not always easy. And again, something not that, that you can never take lightly. But at the end of the day, it's truly walking in your purpose. And that purpose is, just changing lives and helping others achieve their dreams and their goals at the end of the day.
What have been the challenges along the way? Because also the landscape from an entertainment and beauty perspective in South Africa can be vastly different to operating in other spaces and other territories around the world.
Absolutely, yes. I think the biggest challenge we faced in my career definitely has been COVID. I think being in the entertainment space, I think you guys can also relate. It was a tough time for us in the entertainment industry, in the modeling, beauty, lifestyle industries. But we survived it as both quite, small to medium enterprises and small companies. We actually did survive and very grateful for that, but it wasn't easy and we had to adapt and, like everyone else had to, but it was a tough time for us, and we had survived that. So that was definitely a big challenge that we had to overcome at the time. And yes, I think within the South African economy, it's not easy because of just event costs going up, and just trying to still run successful events within the economy that we are is not always easy. And it is a luxury almost for a lot of people and not a necessity. So you have to really also position it in such a way to show that it's actually more than a luxury. People see it as a luxury, and they see it as a nice to have, and they see it as, but at the end of the day, when you work with these women, when you work with these young people, you actually see the difference it makes in their lives, and you realize that it is, it's such an important thing, an industry that we have and that we do. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, congratulations on your nominee for the CEO.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really humbled and just excited about it.
Wishing you the very best. That was Joni Jacobs, who's nominated in the CEO of the Year Awards for the prestigious Woman of Stature Awards. It's just gone 2 o'clock. I swear to goodness, there's someone sabotaging me in the aircon system in our studio lately because I get the most unexpected tickles. Let's take a quick break.
So you've heard OUTsurance clients talking about all the money they saved when they switched. You thought about getting a quote, but you're not sure if they could save you money on your car insurance or if it's worth the effort. Well, make today the day you get an OUTsurance quote. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. If OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you're a winner, like Tulani.
Fast, helpful, efficient, everything was so smooth. I saved 530 bucks.
Make today the day you switch and save. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Hugo are hunting for 3 points. But Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Turn your vision into reality with Vodacom Business. Get the Samsung Galaxy S25 on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,129 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
I swear, I don't know what it is, but something in the air in our studio. It's been happening for the last couple of days. I'll just be mid-sentence and it almost feels like something flies straight into the back of my throat. But we're catching up now with Chef Carmini Panther, who is the host of hashtag Girl Eat World TV and a MasterChef SA winner for season 2, also certified nutrition and health coach. How are you doing this afternoon, Chef Carmini?
I'm so well, Bridget. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us. I mean, firstly, let's get a bit of an update as to, how life has been after MasterChef SA.
Bridget, that was a little while ago. But it's been incredible. I've got to live the sort of like food media dream that I had before MasterChef was even a thought, because Go Eat World was this incredible food travel show. It was 10 international destinations. It got broadcast on Netflix, North America. And, you know, like there've been incredible campaigns. And then, like sort of fast forward through to lockdown, I developed this ebook, which then got shortlisted for a gourmand. I'd just like to add, I shot and recipe tested and edited the ebook on my own, would kind of pave the way for the new book, which is now. So there's been a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but this is what, you know what they say, right? When you finally have your plate full, then you must be grateful because you always wanted a lot on your plate. And this was the point of all this journey. And you are, you know, in part food personality, author, all dolled up. When I saw the word dolled, I was like, Chef Carmony should have come into studio so that she can bring me dolled to sample. Of all the Indian cuisines, I can cook you under the table with a lamb curry and a biryani, right?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure you are going to come up on top of me when it comes to the dal.
Bridget, I'm always about to put your money where your mouth is. So you name the day. I will come over and we will cook that lamb curry and I will bring you some dal.
I love it. So what was All Dolled Up, is All Dolled Up now the new project that everyone is talking about?
It is, and it was born out of this COVID-19 lockdown when I was back in the kitchen with my mom and my gran, and they started to cook stuff that we don't necessarily have recipes for, but like took them back to childhood and then took me back with them. And then when I started cooking in my own kitchen, I was like leaning on the stuff that they had cooked and what I tasted with them, and then leaning on the stuff from Go Eat World and then my own experience, and you put those two things together and something magical kind of happened, which is what we've documented in All Dolled Up.
Yeah. And you know, I think that is the secret, Chef Carmony, what you just said about, you know, the fact that there's been these generations of women in your family that have cooked these incredible Eastern meals and dishes, but it's not documented. And I find that's the thing a lot of the times, especially with Indian cuisine, right? It really is about who's the cook and what mood they are in at that moment, because it's a little bit of that and a little bit of this and some more of that, and you can never really just concretely say what has gone into the dish. Of course, we know there are the fundamentals of coriander, ginger, and garlic, but...
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Look, I also think there's been a few sort of they're not old wives' tales, because this has happened when you ask one of the aunties for a recipe and they sort of leave something out and sort of say, well, you know, mine's the best. But and leave out the fact that they've maybe missed out on ingredients. So I thought this is an opportunity to, you know, put it down in black and white so that everyone might be able to do this in their own homes.
Yeah, and I love the fact that this sort of culinary exploration as well has been a homage to your own family lineage, right? That the involvement of your mom and obviously the passed down of grandma's recipes as well. It speaks to not just preserving recipes, but also preserving the story and the lineage of your family and telling, you know, stories that sometimes are not told through food.
Completely. And I really love this quote by Maya Angelou, and I'm probably paraphrasing here, but it was to the effect of, you don't know where you've headed until you know where you've been. And that sort of sums up this book for me, because there are some recipes that I cooked with my gran, and she does not believe in the metric system, so it was there saying, Ma, just hold on, can you measure this? And you know, weigh that. And then sort of taking those recipes and then redeveloping it so that it is updated for like the modern palate. Maybe it uses healthier ingredients, better oils, maybe it's not frying, it's air frying. And so we got to a point where the food tastes like it comes from my grandmother and part of my lineage, but it's been very much updated to 2025. So that was quite an exciting process. And actually, I have to say, one of the best things was to have gone and worked on a recipe that had sort of started in my grand's kitchen, and then to go back and to have her taste what I then created, and for her to be like, okay, this is good. Like, Ma has given her approval, so things are okay.
Well, listen, she's lived a long and healthy life at like over 90. So please don't be messing up her recipes, because you'll not be welcome home for any of the special celebrations. How dare you?
I would never dare mess up one of her recipes. She actually just turned 91 in March, and we are so lucky to still have sort of the matriarch in our family to guide us through.
Oh, man. I mean, it sounds absolutely incredible. So for those of us who now want to add All Dolled Up to our collection of cookbooks, please do tell us that you are on the shelves, so you're going to be on the shelves across the country.
We are on the shelves across the country. I have to admit, I've been that nerd that's been going into bookstores and then shrieking when I see my book on the shelf. So it is definitely in stores, and there's a few options online as well. So you're welcome to get them.
You need a hard copy book when you're cooking, okay? I'm a millennial like that. You need the hard copy book. You need the display up on the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
So everyone can see. Even though each cookbook, you probably cook 2 or 3 things out of it, but just to know that you have it there, you know? Awesome stuff.
Just from the combination of the hard copy and the fact that you've cooked 2 or 3 recipes from there, I can tell that you're a food person.
I really
you know how this goes down.
I really am. Chef Carmony Panther, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished so far. And we're looking forward to this tasty journey that continues to unveil itself. And of course, Chef was also a resident chef on SABC's Ready Steady Cook, and the winner of Master Chef SA Season 2. And host of #Girl Eat World TV. All Dolled Up is in your favorite bookstores in the cooking aisles, and you'll know if she's been there because the book will be strategically positioned right in front, covering all the books, because they all do that. All the authors do that when they go into the bookstores. That was Chef Carmony Panther. It's just gone 10 to 2 o'clock. We're going to take a quick pause, and then we'll come right back and catch up with the folks from Iziko.
Negati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end, but the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle. Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM commemorates Human Rights Month. We are all responsible for the protection of our rights. SAFM, leading the conversation. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, a quick catch-up with Dr. Bongani Ndlovu, who's the acting CEO of Iziko Museums of South Africa. If you have not experienced the space yet, the good doctor is going to give us a bit of context and background. How are you doing this afternoon?
We're doing great, and thank you for having us.
It's only but a pleasure. All right, let's give South Africans a quick snapshot of Iziko Museums of South Africa, and of course, plural implying that more than one.
That's correct. We have more than one museum. In fact, we have collections of 12 museums and sites that covers different elements of our heritage, from the arts, social history, to the natural science collections. We have it all here at Iziko Museums.
And by way of the museum's heritage and history, contextualize that for us, because I think even I'm not aware as to when this idea of this collection of museums was first brought about.
Well, Iziko as a flagship was established post 1999. We are a collection of 12 museums, and one of those museums is the South African Museum, which is South Africa's oldest museum, this year turning 200 years. This museum focuses mainly on natural natural history, and it covers cultural history and the arts. And it has some of the most precious gems in our collections and in our country. And amongst them is an oldest buffalo horn, a fossilized one. We encourage people to come and visit them. The now extinct quagga, we also encourage people to come and have a look at them. In fact, there are a number of gems in our collections to African dinosaurs. You'll also find them here at the Iziko South African Museum.
Yeah.
And when it comes to social history or cultural history, the Iziko Slave Lodge focuses mainly on the question of human rights and human wrongs. And we encourage also South Africans and visitors at large to come and explore this site. It reminds us of the difficult heritage in our past, which is entrenched on the question of enslavement, either from the movement, the first movement of people from Asia to Africa or from Africa to Americas, and also internally, or how people were forced into labor here in South Africa. That site reminds us of human rights. And as we focus on the Human Rights Day, it will be a perfect site for many South Africans to visit and reflect on that memory.
Yeah. I think even me, myself, as a South African, definitely going to put it on my to-do list for 2025. And the museums, as you say, they're not just spaces, they're not just galleries and libraries and archives. But these are spaces that are actually do a bit more and activate and engage a bit more, right? Because you've centered them as hubs of creativity and innovation. Let's talk a little bit about that vision as well.
Yes, that's the idea. As museums, we are also embracing other forms of technologies, the digital technologies. But central to these innovations is the idea of engagement. We want to use, and we are using our objects, our specimens, our artworks as instruments to engage. If you look at, for example, now currently at the South African National Gallery, we are showing Sue Wellington retrospective. And again, we are looking also using art as a means or a medium through which we can discuss the question of colonialism, of apartheid, but most importantly also of creativity, because it also they encourage us to be more creative, to be innovative. And if you come again at the South African Museum, we have a digital planetarium in the dome, wherein we are using immersive experiences to allow South Africans and our visitors to engage with the question of astronomy, to engage with the question of arts. And we are using that space so that we are able to visualize it. So it allows that, they give us therefore the platform to engage, to visualize, and to discuss, sometimes to discuss difficult questions in our country, and we are using this site as platform for that.
Yeah.
And also to discuss groundbreaking research that our teams, our researchers also discover and found. So we are using also this platform and these sites as platforms for discussions and engagement and for knowledge sharing and discussions.
Absolutely. Dr. Bongani, I know that you're inviting all of us this Human Rights Day to come through for the ISIM 200. Give us some context on that.
The ISIM 200 is a big project for us this year. We have launched it, and it's a series of activations and celebrations and exhibitions throughout this year. For example, in 2 days' time, we'll be launching the Sea and Us exhibitions. And then soon after that, we are also having a series of discussions on the International Museums Day to discuss important activities in our country's heritage. But what I can do is to encourage our listeners and our visitors to go to Iziko's website, www.iziko.org.za, to look at this calendar of activities and also programs that we have for a year. What in essence, the ISIM 200 is a project wherein we reflect on the 200 years of museum making in South Africa. The South African Museum being the oldest museum in South Africa and the oldest museum in the Southern Hemisphere, set a benchmark on how museums engage with the question of heritage and knowledge circulation. And we are using this project as a platform through which to reflect on that, and also to display our 200 works, our most precious objects. And then we are selecting 200 objects that will be launching on the 11th of June in the form of an exhibition to say to the broader public and also to South Africans, these are 200 most precious objects that our curators have picked up for you, but there's more to that. We are using that as an example of what we've collected over the past 200 years.
Wonderful. I mean, it sounds like a really good program that you're rolling out to celebrate this 200-year marker. We appreciate the time with you. That was Dr. Bongani Ndlovu, the acting CEO of Iziko Museums of South Africa, a collection of over 12 museums, including the Museum of South Africa, the oldest museum in the country. So listen, they are inviting you. Come this Human Rights Day on the 21st of March, you can have free entry to the Iziko Slave Lodge and the Iziko South African National Gallery, as well as the Iziko South African Museum. So if you're looking for something more cultural, perhaps to do to mark the day, Human Rights Day, it definitely would be a great day out, right? I've never been to the Slave Lodge. I think it would be something that would be on my to-do list. So free entry for all of us on the 21st of March at the Iziko Slave Lodge and the Iziko South African National Gallery and, of course, the Iziko South African Museum. If you do go, please tag us on social media and take us along on your experience. You can find us on at SAFM on X, formerly known as Twitter, and you can also tag me at Bridget Masinga. It's 2 o'clock. Ondela is standing by.
Thank you, Bridget. On the top stories, government to embark on major TB testing drive, and DA criticizes the budget allocation for health department in Gauteng. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says government has set a goal of testing 5 million people for TB each year. This is part of government efforts to reduce new TB infections and curb deaths. This comes ahead of World TB Day next Monday. Motsoaledi was speaking to the media in Johannesburg earlier.
We want to test the whole family. That's what we're going to do. One member in this family has been tested for TB, is positive, whether on treatment or not, but we know that there is one member. Let's test the whole family. We are further going to test in communities that we know to be vulnerable. And we want to say, if you are HIV positive, allow us to test you for TB, because most of the time they go together. We are also going to say, anybody who have been treated for TB and cured, we like to follow them for 6 months and for another 6 months.
The DA in Gauteng has criticized the budget allocation for health, saying it made no provision to pay off over 4 billion rand owed to suppliers and fill staff vacancies. The Gauteng health budget increased by 3.7% from 64.7 billion rands to 67 billion rands. The Gauteng health spokesperson, Jack Bloom, says there is no extra money to fix crumbling hospitals. He says the other challenge is the funding gap resulting from the withdrawal of US PEPFAR fund.
Premier Panyaza Lesufi should give priority to health budget. He seems to be ignoring the need for radical change in top management, because this is a department that misspends the available budget, and there's very poor outcomes for hospital patients who stand in long queues and wait very long time for operations.
The legal representative for the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies has argued that ETV Media is not litigating to protect the interest of the poor in this case, but for commercial interests. Advocate Kennedy Tsatsawane is arguing in the Pretoria High Court in a legal bid where ETV, Media Monitoring Africa and SOS Support Public Broadcasting Coalition sought to halt the analog switch off set for the end of the month. Advocate Tsatsawane argues that the Constitutional Court judgment did not reject the argument that ETV was litigating for its own commercial interests.
Firstly, starting with paragraph 101 of the judgment, that's where the Constitutional Court summarized the submissions made against the conduct of ETV in the litigation. The effect of it was simply that ETV has taken different positions about an analog switch-off date. Firstly, it had supported an expedited analog switch-off, and reference was made to the telecom case, which my lord dealt with in 2021.
Free State Police have opened 2 dockets of public violence after a group of protesters barricaded roads with stones in Gauteng and Bothaville. The community members marched through the Nala municipality offices to hand over a memorandum. Police say schools in the area have been disrupted due to the protests and are currently closed. The Nala municipality offices have also been closed. They demand better service delivery in the area and want the municipal mayor, municipal manager and the CFO to be removed, accusing them of alleged corruption. Turkish authorities have detained President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's main political rival, the popular mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu. Dozens of other politicians, journalists and businessmen have also been arrested in raids overnight. The BBC's Emily Wheeler has the details.
The detention of Ekrem İmamoğlu comes days before Turkey's main opposition party, the CHP, was likely to name him as their official presidential challenger to Tayyip Erdogan, who's been in power for more than 2 decades. İmamoğlu is facing charges of corruption and links to a terrorist group. The leader of the opposition is calling the arrest a coup. Here in Istanbul, key metro stations and roads have been closed, social media restricted, and there's been a 4-day ban on rallies or demonstrations, all in an attempt to stop protests in the city.
Recapping the top story, Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says government has set a goal of testing 5 million people for TB each year. This is part of government efforts to reduce new TB infections and curb deaths. I am on Delambana for SAFM News headlines at 2:30.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Masandawana ladies want to emphasize that they are the conquerors of women's football Mzansi. However, University of the Western Cape ladies are confident they will walk away with a pass mark called victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League, the meeting of powerhouses. Mamelodi Sundowns ladies versus UWC ladies on Saturday 22 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Kubangati awubona uthando lwami ngelinye ixesha sithandwa sami ngibangazama awubona umzamo wami kodwa xa ngekho phambi kwakho uyayazi kuba njani na kuba xa ungekho phambi kwam ndiyayazi kuba njani kum uyenza kwintliziyo yam unyenza ndizibuze imibuzo uyenza kwintliziyo yam unyenza ndingalali ebusuku usakhumbula uba kukwizithembiso esazenzayo phambi komfundisi nabantu kuba wawuthe uzawuba nami noma kunjani ebuhleni nasemubini ndiyamangala xa izawuba nguwe lo ufuna uhamba ufuna uthatha into zakho goduke ndiyamangala xa izawuba nguwe lo ufuna ugoduka ngenxa yabantu ngenamali uyenza kwintliziyo yam unyenza ndizibuze imibuzo uyenza
Nati coming through with Imbuzo. And this one was released in 2015. It came from the album Buyelekhaya, which was much anticipated. It scooped quite a number of awards for this one at the 22nd South African Music Awards, the SAMAs. It went on to also win Male Artist of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, Best R&B Soul Raga Album, and Best-Selling Album. They tell me, they've just whispered in my ears, but I'm not too sure if I should share or not, because, you know, last week I was so excited, so excited by our guest last week, and then scheduling conflict on their end with their team meant that we couldn't sort of fulfill the interview. Hopefully we're working on rescheduling that. So I don't know if I should actually say about what's coming up, who's coming up on Friday. I should just keep my mouth quiet, and then we'll see on Friday when the time comes for full access. All right. But right now, though, we wanted to have a conversation around the cost of funerals in South Africa and how we can make funerals a bit more affordable, right? So we're going to talk to a funeral director in this space. But more than that, we also want to ask you, and I really want us to hear, if we can, from all the different perspectives, because obviously I have a black experience of funerals, so I know what funerals for us are, what they entail, and the cost implications, and they can be very, very expensive, because we've sort of socialized ourselves. We've created a social culture around the events leading up to a funeral. There's a week run up with that costs money. Then there's the actual funeral day. Then there's the unveiling tombstone event that comes, depending on the family, it comes either a couple of months after, a year after. Some families do it immediately. So I know funerals from the black lived experience, but I would love to also know funerals from the different other races as to how are your funerals by way of the cost implications and factor. Is it easier because perhaps maybe the processes and just how quickly you get the funeral elements done make it a little bit more affordable? And what are your thoughts actually when it comes to black culture funerals? Because I think black culture funerals are, we allowed people, they documented, everybody knows more or less the time frames of our funerals. Where do you think we could shave off maybe some things? Let's open this conversation up for us to just share on our different lived experiences. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line. 086002032 is the number that you can call us on. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come back with our guest.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Negati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end, but the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle. Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us, because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. Feel free to send through a WhatsApp voice note. Unathi Sol joins us now, the Chief Operating Officer at Abavelile Funeral Directors. And there's been a global research study that identified South Africa as having the fourth most expensive, or being the fourth most expensive country in terms of funeral cost. I mean, not too much of a differentiation by way of percentage, because we are around 3% more than the global average. But I guess with all studies, if you drill down into it, it would be interesting to know what sort of makes up the costs. How are you doing this afternoon, Unathi? You good?
I'm good, Bridget. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm so great. I'm not surprised that we are ranking so high in the sense of the most expensive funerals. I'm really not surprised.
Oh, Bridget, may I get in?
Yes.
Okay. Afternoon to the listeners. Afternoon again to you, Bridget. This is a touchy subject, actually, because our people, as us funeral directors, they do not believe us sometimes. But the costs are so high, especially in South Africa, because of the different cultural religions that we have. Because, sometimes, for instance, Xhosa people sometimes have to have a cow when burying their loved one. So due to the different religions, that's why funeral costs in South Africa are ranked the fourth in the country.
Yeah. So it's what you're saying is that the sort of cultural and customary elements are what also have an effect on the cost of the funeral. It's not just the cost as per the cost that would come from a funeral service like yourselves that would make up the cost.
Yes, correct, Bridget. Because people tend to want to have their customized types of funerals. So your standard funeral, unfortunately, for South Africans, does not do it, does not cut it. So our funerals always have to be customized to fit or to be aligned with the client.
Yeah.
And then secondly, in South Africa, we pay for burial spaces. That is a problem.
Oh.
And we are running out and we are paying for burial spaces, especially in the city. So that's another cost that's added to the funeral cost.
Yeah. When you say a standard funeral cost, I mean, what would that entail?
Thank you, Bridget. A standard funeral entails a coffin, entails a service. That's about it. And usually the service is roughly 2 to 3 hours.
Okay. So under that would be like the setup costs, like the chairs and those elements that we see at either the church or the home, if it's chosen to be at home, and then the setup at the burial site.
Yes, that's included in the service payment.
Oh, I see.
It's part of the service. Yes, and then you will have your additional, like decoration, so forth, tombstone. But a standard service only entails a coffin and the service, which is the service includes your chairs, includes your machines that you use at the grave site, includes the tent for the grave site.
Okay, includes the fancy vehicles, or that becomes the customization that you talk of?
The vehicles become the customization. With a standard funeral, only a hearse goes to bury your loved one.
So once you start seeing that convoy, that fleet of 10, 20 black black Mercedes Benzes and that effing bus, then you know that it's now customized.
Yes, it's customized and the clients have paid. Even if you do have a policy, but usually the cars and the decorations and all the extras are usually paid for in cash. Because remember, it is always customized according to your specification.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was just standard. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086-000-2032 is the number that you're calling on. I know a lot of people don't like to have the conversation, but two things in life are inevitable. You are going to pay taxes and you are going to die. And so at some point, your family has to have a conversation around the cost of funerals and how do we navigate around that. So how do we make, on average, tell me on average, Unati, on average, what are South Africans spending on a funeral?
Thank you. On average, South Africans are spending 50 to 60,000 on an average funeral.
On the day of the funeral?
On the day of the funeral, because as I said before, it's the funeral costs, right? And then it's the home cost, which is the family cooks.
Yes.
Yes, catering is involved. Tombstones most of the time is involved because now there's a new trend coming in. People do not want to do the tombstone at a later stage because they believe it's another costly service to have it at a later stage. So they would rather, when they bury their loved ones, and also the tombstone service.
I see. You know, I've always, and I don't know what our listeners think about this, but I've always thought that, you know, if we're being conscious of budgets and the fact that you still need to carry on with life as the remaining family, things like an unveiling for me are not necessary. Put the tombstone up, gather together as family and maybe a handful of close friends for a lunch just to mark the day and maybe be in memory, and then go about your business. Why is it a big ceremonial thing?
Thank you, Bridget. It's the trends, I guess. It's the trends. But I think now, with, you know, as our state in South Africa is not really good now currently in terms of money. People really don't have money. So they have adopted the trend of having the tombstone erected on the day of the funeral. So now you won't have the extra lunches, the extra catering, the extra setup costs. Your tombstone will be erected, let's say, the day before. And then on the day of the service, it's going to be the burial first, and then unveiling of the tombstone. And then your catering is for only those number of people, not extra people or a certain day to include extra costs.
Gotcha.
So I actually convince a lot of my clients at Abaveli Funeral Directors to go this route because we know burying a loved one can be financially straining, especially in these trying times. So I try my utmost best to advise them to do the one-off service during the burial.
I mean, sage advice. Let's go to our calls quickly. 086-000-2032, and then we'll jump to WhatsApp on 061-410-4107. Michael's in PE. How are you?
I'm good, and how are you?
I'm good today. I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. If you think that living is expensive, then try dying, right? I'm saying this in a particular way. I think. Okay, let me phrase it properly. I think just as we try to keep up with the Joneses when we are living, I think we've also taken it to debt, where we are keeping up with the Joneses in debt. In other words, we want to see who can have the most spectacular funeral, and I think it's all not necessary, really. We need to honor the dead, of course, but the living still have to live. So
absolutely.
I think some of the cost that comes with it, I like the Muslim way of funeral, where you pass away today, tomorrow you are wrapped in a blanket, and they honor you, and you're gone. Sometimes I even wonder, like, where do people get appetite from? How can you be sad and still have appetite? I don't understand it.
I love the
Okay.
touch of humor, Michaels. Thank you so much for the call. And then we've got is it Mboneni in Ennerdale?
Yes, correctly so. Good afternoon, Bridget, and thanks for taking my call and good show. Yeah, look, I want to come in a different angles. Firstly, I would like to second what the previous caller who just left now to say that we look at the Indian Muslim community, and then we also look at, I will give an example with the coffin that buried Joe Slover. It was out of nothing, that coffin.
Yes.
But for us, blacks in particular, it has become more business when we bury our beloved ones, because you can find out that we've joined many funeral parlor, many group scheme of funeral, and it's sort of competition, because you look at the graveyard, and we spend a lot of bricks there building the graveyard, and you find that the coffin is somewhere around 85,000, and the tombstone that was created with a photo, a picture, is costing a damage of 45,000.
Yeah.
And then chairs, and then all this decoration and stuff like that. And then I think the caller that was there, I think it's Wisha from Parktown, indicating about the fact that we have a lot of people and why we are putting tombstones. But for me now, we are out of culture, because we know for the fact that you bury, and then 12 months waiting period, you erect a tombstone and stuff like that. So everything that we are doing today, that's why we are dying like nobody's business, because culture is out amongst us. And I think the other thing that worries me with the funeral parlor and the group scheme like AFPOP, or whatever, somebody just passed and last month you didn't pay.
Boneni, sorry, we got cut off there, but I think we get the gist of the perspective. Let's just do one voice note and then we'll jump back to Nanti.
Good afternoon. Talking about funerals, I think with Caucasian South Africans, if the person is religious, they'll go and have a church service, and then in the hall, usually of the church, will be tea and coffee and cakes. If it's somebody who's not religious, they may have it at a club or somewhere or in their home, and again, it's just tea and coffee and cakes, and maybe if it's in the home, there may be wine or something, but I think very low key and nothing too flamboyant, and just to pay the respects to the person who has died. And you know, there's no huge party or whatever. It's just being respectful to that person and just giving them a bit of a send off. And it's a time when people meet, and often relatives haven't seen each other for a long time, and it's just a little get together, but nothing sort of too flamboyant or very expensive at all. Okay, it's Bear from Durban. Bye.
I didn't grab your name, but I heard you from Durban. I've often threatened my mom that I'm going to give her a very white people funeral. A Wednesday burial with cucumber sandwiches, crust cut off on the side, a little bit of tea and juice and wine, and then we keep it moving. And she's often said to me, she's like, I will come and I will spook you from beyond the grave. But yeah, I mean, it's about being conscious of where we are in these times. Hey, Unati. Because finances and the fact that there's family being left behind is something that perhaps we really do need to interrogate, especially as Black South Africans.
Yes, Bridget. I think, you know what, in the olden days, this was a lot easier because our great-grandparents used to live, let's say, rural areas, and they had these things. They had the veg in the garden. They had the cows to slaughter. They had the sheep. So it was not costly. They had all this food that was supposed to be cooked during the funeral in their garden. So now people are no longer farming. They don't have land. So that's why the increase of prices, that it seems so extravagant. But really, if we now have to, let's say as Africans, turn back on our culture, you can't, because you're doing something that has been done within a long lifeline in your family.
Yeah. No,
my suggestion. Oh, sorry. My suggestion, Bridget, would be for people to actually normalize taking funeral policies. There's two different types of funeral policies.
Ooh, that becomes a whole nother conversation on its own, and we've fast run out of time on that. But we've touched on it with the insurance sector from time to time, and there are some pros and cons for a lot of people in as far as that is concerned. But for today, we have to wrap it there. That was Unathi Sol, Chief Operating Officer at the Abavelile Funeral Directors, having a conversation with us around the cost of funerals in South Africa and perhaps the things we can consider to make funerals a bit more affordable. You can still send through your voice notes on 061-410-4107. We'll get some time before the show is over to reflect on some of your thoughts around this conversation. For now, Ondela Mbana is standing by.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, the Office of the Auditor General says it has formally issued audit opinions of material irregularities to 4 municipalities for late submission of financial statements for 2023-24 financial year. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says government has set a goal of testing 5 million people for TB each year. This is part of government efforts to reduce new TB infections and curb deaths. Air attacks between Russia and Ukraine have continued after President Vladimir Putin rejected a comprehensive ceasefire and phone call with President Donald Trump. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dress to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on S3 at 6 p.m. Or visit sabcsport.com for more details. Visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok. Negati are in a big search for their first win, while the indomitable Lions want to hold on to the summit of Group D. The bottom of the table clashes with the top. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Cameroon. This Wednesday, 19 March at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
On the 1st of July 2022, the President of the Republic of South Africa signed the National Forest Amendment Act 2022, Act Number 1 of 2022, the Amendment Act into law. The President has now proclaimed the Amendment Act and determined its commencement date as the 4th of December 2024. The Minister has also published amendment regulations which seeks to give effect to certain sections of the Amendment Act. A copy of the proclamation notice and the amendment regulations can be accessed on the following websites: www.dffe.gov.za/legislation/gazetted notices or www.gpwonline.gov.za. Any communication or media inquiries in connection with the publication can be directed to Mr. Peter Mbelengwa, Chief Director of Communication and Advocacy. The telephone number is 012-399-8842 or the cell phone number 082-611-8197 or email pmbelengwa@dffe.gov.za.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
SABC Education, in partnership with the Department of Health and Dilifa Labantwana, bring you episode 16 of the Side-by-Side drama season 4, focused on storytelling for healthy and inquisitive minds.
Say and say. Side by side.
Singama Africa Kenya you Tina Singama Africa Kenya you Tina Singama Africa Kenya you Tina.
Okay, thanks, Mom Cindy. No, it's fine. I'll find a way. Bye. Oh, hey, Lerato. Sorry, I was just on the phone with Mom Cindy.
Morning, friend. I thought I'd just come by and check if you're still alive.
Of course I'm still alive.
Well, I can see that now. But when I, as your best friend, don't get a call or a message, I get worried. How are you these days?
Yo, friend, it feels like I'm running through mud. I just can't get through the amount of work that I have.
Then you must just tell the people at the clinic to give you less work. They can't take advantage of you.
It's not them, it's me. There's so many people to help. And now I'm double booked this afternoon. I'm supposed to do a story reading for a few toddlers at the community center.
My friend, you're not majoring. Don't spread yourself so thin. What about Mom Cindy? Can't she take the reading from you?
Well, I just spoke to her on the phone, and she has another appointment this afternoon. I don't know what I'm going to do, friend.
Well, no wonder your husband is complaining that he's not getting his quality time with you.
He said what? To who?
Friend, I overheard him talking to Zugo.
Ugh, that man. I'm always under a lot of stress, and he's already making it worse by talking to other people about our personal life.
Hey, friend. He spoke to Zugo only, not the newspapers. I mean, who else must he talk to? And you need to slow down. That's why I came to here, if you want to spend some time with me this afternoon. But I guess you're busy. You won't have time.
Yes, as I said, I'm double booked. Rato.
No.
No, what? No, what?
Whenever you say my name like that, I know you're about to ask me something I'm going to regret.
Please, won't you just help me by doing the story reading? Please?
No, you know I don't like being in front of people. That's you. You're fine with that.
I promise you no one is going to judge you.
Then, friend, you don't know the kids of today as much as you say you do.
Please, friend. It will help me a lot. Please.
All right, I'll do it.
You're a lifesaver.
Remember that when you decide to blue tick me.
Prasteps, is it so ridiculous to want a child of your own?
Sakumzi, I am not going to get involved in your marriage life. You and Joyce must talk this through.
But Prasteps, that's just the problem.
Oh.
She doesn't want to talk about it.
Uh-huh.
In fact, most of the time, she doesn't even have time to talk about it.
Oh.
It's always her work this and her work that. You know, Prasteps, I'm starting to feel like one of her earrings, actually.
How?
I'm talking about the earrings that she only wears to special occasions.
Oh, Sakums.
I'm an accessory now. Like I'm some unimportant storybook character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Prasteps, like the ones who point the main character in the right direction. But they never get to go the same direction.
Hey.
They are always left behind. This is how I feel.
Hi, man. Hey, Sakumzi. No, man.
It's not funny, Prasteps.
Look, I'm sorry, but you have a way with weeds.
Prasteps, I don't know what to do anymore. She won't talk to me. and I'm not allowed to speak to her about kids. I'm starting to wonder if demanding a new baby is going to cost me my marriage.
Look, it's a tricky situation, but I don't think it is that serious. Sakomzi, Joyce loves you. You two just need to sit down and talk.
Brastep, talk?
Yeah, talk.
There's that word again. Something that she does not want to do.
Good afternoon, kids. Are you guys ready for your story today? Okay, here goes. As the sun began to set over the rolling hills of Limpopo, painting the sky with shades of orange, pink, little Naledi hugged her teddy bear tightly. She had finally found her beloved friend under the big shade of a big marula tree, where it had been gently cradled by a kind giraffe. Naledi's journey had been long and full of adventures. She had crossed sparkling streams where playful fish splashed, wandered through the fields of tall whispering grass, and even tiptoed past a dozing lion. But she wasn't scared anymore, not even a little, because along the way she made many friends. There was Temba the rabbit, who hopped alongside her through the fields, his long ears twitching with excitement. Kaya the bird, with her bright feathers, sang cheerful songs that made the journey feel like a dance. And of course, gentle Jabu the giraffe, who spotted the teddy from far with his long neck and careful eyes. Now, as Naledi walked back home, her heart felt as warm as the sun setting behind her. She had found her teddy, and with it, she had found courage and friendship. The end. Oh no. I enjoyed reading the storybook to you all, but this was a once-off. Well, seeing that everyone enjoyed it so much, yes, I will. Oh, look. Here's your mom, Ritabile.
Well, that looks like it went well.
It did. And I've been asked back, because I'm that good.
See, there was nothing to worry about.
I forgot how children love stories. When Kayona was young, I used to read him short stories. Now he wants longer stories.
Well, as they grow, their attention span also grows. There's a strong link between storytelling, book reading, and literacy.
So it helps the children to learn better.
Of course it does. And you seem to have found your other calling. I watched you from the door and they were so into the story.
Oh, man, it's so nice to see all those eyes watching and their little ears, they listening with all their attention.
So, does that mean I can book you for next week again?
Don't push your luck, but okay, yes.
Singama Africa Kenya you Tina Singama Africa Kenya you Tina
Join us again tomorrow as we sit down with an expert at 2:30 to further discuss storytelling for healthy and inquisitive minds right here on SAFM.
Side by side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Mokopane.
So before we took our kids programming, we were talking about the cost of funerals in South Africa and how maybe we can make them a little bit more affordable. And while we line up our final guest for the show, let's head back to WhatsApp and see what are you sharing? What's your experience around funerals and just the cost implications of such?
Hi, Bridget, and your guest. Funeral parlors, they are the ones who are making these things to be expensive. A funeral is not expensive. Remember that they give you a policy and say that you can add up to 13 members and you pay, say, maybe 150 or 160 for the policy. And then you happen to die, maybe you as a main member. And they say, this is the casket that we are going to give you. You find they show you some funny thing that you see it's not of value. And then when you ask them, how much can I add at least to get like a decent coffin? Maybe they say 70,000. And then mind you, that 70,000, they go and buy a coffin probably maybe by 5,000 rand. That's where the problem is. Because an ordinary person is not allowed to buy a coffin. You know, you're not allowed to buy a coffin, but a coffin that you can pay 5,000 rand at the funeral parlor, you pay over 85,000, and they say it comes with these cars. You know, that's where the problem is.
Hi, Bridget. Good afternoon. Nice show. This is Anonymous. Regarding funerals, people are just doing this for show. They just want to show off from other people how lavish they are. So I always tell my family that I don't believe in doing things for people. That funeral policy that I'm paying for, if I get buried with that and people have that curry and go, or that sami and go, that's it. Why want to do so much for people to brag? No eats, no drinks, no nothing else, just juice or mineral. No alcohol. Why must you have alcohol to please who? Because we're mourning in this house. Yeah, Bridget. That's it. Thanks. Bye.
This is Bridget. How's it? Could you please ask the guest about the premiums that are paid monthly? What happens to them? And how do they multiply them to cover funeral costs ranging up to 60,000 as she mentioned? They want to know the finances behind them.
Hi, good afternoon. The burial thing in South Africa is out of hand. Black South Africans have to wake up. This thing, it's done for I don't know what, because you find that even the person is buried, they're doing a lavish funeral while the person was living in squalor. What's the point? What's the point? In our culture, we just rape you in a cow skin and go down the drain. Death is death. When somebody's dead, is dead. There's nothing. Whether you do a lavish funeral or not, it's just the same. It's just money-making business.
I actually would be interested, and I don't know if you're still listening, but I would be interested to know which culture is that you speak about, where the caller just said that they wrap you up in a cow skin, which and then they bury you. I'd love to know which culture that is. It's interesting how we all do funerals very differently. Across the different races and across the different cultures, even on the continent. And I don't know which country it is, but I know we've got a lot of our East African and West African brothers and sisters that listen to the show. I know that there is a country where you could be laying in wait. I don't know what the term is, but you could be laying in wait for months. There's a country where a funeral could take months to happen because of some family dynamics or circumstances. They're waiting for people to come back from Europe or and please correct me, but this is why we actually wanted to have this conversation. And I remember when I came to this knowledge, I thought, whoa, imagine waiting. I feel waiting 7 days is long. Imagine waiting for months before you can actually bury somebody. The other thing I didn't know, which I just learned from this voice note, is that I cannot walk in anywhere and buy a casket myself. That's interesting. So what happens to people who bury in the rurals, people who don't actually take funeral service covers and things like that, and they bury in the rurals because they've got the land? How do they bury? I didn't know that an ordinary person actually couldn't go buy a casket, just walk in, buy a casket at cost. Let's have a conversation with my final guest for this afternoon, Wisdom Ngandawere, who is the CEO and founder of Invisible Diversity. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, thank you, and thank you for having me. I assume this is Bridget.
Yes, thank you for the time. A quick conversation just to observe Neurodiversity Celebration Week, which is happening from the 17th until the 23rd of March. And you yourself were diagnosed neurodivergent, diagnosed with autism. And you actually say that you found your diagnosis to be a relief. How so, Wisdom?
That's right, Bridget. Yes, I was diagnosed 3 years ago with autism spectrum disorders, and the relief comes in knowing and being able to understand why my brain functions a certain way, and knowing that I finally have an explanation, for example, for how I functioned from all the way being a young child growing up in Malawi and up until now through high school and through the last 20 years of work as an executive person. I, as an accountant, I have experienced, a lot of challenges, but now I have an answer for those challenges, why I have certain difficulties.
And in recent years, we've sort of become familiar with the terminology neurodivergent or neurodiversity. When we speak of neurodiversity as a concept, what would it encompass? What kind of diagnoses would it speak to?
Yeah, so neurodiversity is a kind of a broader term. It's talking about all of us, so the whole population is neurodiverse. And then amongst that population, there's a minority called the neurodivergent. And for the neurodivergent population, you're talking about, for the most part, dyslexia is probably the highest composition of that population. And then you also have ADHD, you have autism. ADHD is attention hyperactive deficit disorder, and you also have development coordination disorders, and there are quite a number of others that are kind of represented in the population, although in much smaller numbers.
The other sort of interesting data is that neurodivergent folks are actually, make up quite a significant number, approximately 20% of the South African population, 1 in 5 people. That have been diagnosed with some kind of neurodivergent diagnosis. But even given all of that, we're still not seeing enough systematic change that take into considerations the different ways that the human brain can work.
That's right, Bridget. So the studies suggest that an estimated 1 in 5 people, that is an estimate on the population, the entire population of South Africa. So you're talking about roughly 13 million people that could be neurodivergent. And I think the biggest challenge is this is a relatively new concept. It's much more, kind of popular or common amongst the younger generation because we've become more aware and now we're addressing it at the school levels. So to a certain extent, there are measures that are being taken in, to be more inclusive in schools these days. So, for example, you get things like inclusive education, and you also get special needs schools, around the country in South Africa, but it hasn't as much hit the workplace yet. And it's more about, there's a couple of things. One is people are less aware of their neurodivergence, and therefore they are not asking for, they don't even know what to ask. And then the second one is really that there's a lot of stigma associated with neurodivergence still. We're running a survey that's going to be out in the next week or so. And one of the elements we ask for is, who comes to mind when you think about neurodivergence? As for most people, if you think about a movie character, it's probably Rain Man.
Yeah.
And if you think about, maybe The Accountant as a movie, but these are pretty extreme situations. And in between lies a whole spectrum of different neurotypes that are neurodivergent. And because we're not that aware, and because the extremes are associated with, stigma and all of that, people are not coming forward as well as they should be in order to get the help they need. And of course, there's a third barrier that I don't want to go without mentioning. So thank you, Bridget, for asking that question, which is, well, there's a cost to providing the services, whether it's accommodations in the workplace, whether it's accommodations at school, or whether it's just accessing services for neurodivergent population. And the cost is pretty high. So if you look at all of those factors combined together, the awareness, the stigma, the cost, they pretty much create a perfect storm, if you will. They snowball into a much bigger issue that then prevents people from coming forward to access services.
Which leads us down an unending rabbit hole. And in our final moments, Wisdom, just perhaps what, from a professional sense and a workplace sense, what should be some of the considerations to ensure a space that is perhaps more aware and is more inclusive of the neurodivergent?
Yeah, the simplest, I would say, which comes at very little or marginal additional cost, and it's also part of good etiquette for meetings, is if we can share the pre-read materials for a meeting in advance, then it allows neurodivergent people like myself that need time to process the information. It allows us to process the information and come prepared for the meetings, because not everyone can, the phrase shoot off the hip, as they say. And neurodivergent people tend to require, some of them require, such as myself, require a little bit more time to process so they can present considered recommendations and responses and suggestions.
And actually, that is a costless exercise, and it's just a matter of awareness and consideration. I think you've definitely opened up a gateway conversation for us, and we'll delve a little bit deeper into just better understanding the environment that neurodivergent individuals operate in, especially from a professional sense, in the weeks to come. That was Wisdom Mkandaweri, who's the CEO and founder of Invisible Diversity. And he's an advocate, really is an advocate for transforming corporate spaces to make them a bit more inclusive and considered for folks who have been diagnosed with some kind of neurodivergent. That is how we wrap up the show today. Thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it always, and for being in conversation with us. It's always a blast. We don't take it for granted. You could have been anywhere and you chose to be here. Ashraf is already standing by in the wings, and he's coming through with the National Pulse. From myself and my team, inshallah, we get to do it tomorrow.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Tshwane University of Technology ladies are chasing 3 points. But Copperbelt ladies have a different idea. They want to play great football for the duration of the match to walk away victors. This is the Hollywood Men's Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. TUT ladies versus Copperbelt ladies on Saturday 22 March at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Equality, human dignity, freedom of movement and residence. Life. Everyone has the right to life. Human Rights Month on SAFM.
Thank you, Bridget and the team. Top stories at 3. AG issues audit opinions on some municipalities and EMPD officers back at work. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. The Office of the Auditor General says it has formally issued audit opinions of material irregularities to 4 municipalities for late submission of financial statements for 2023-24 financial year. Earlier, AG Tsakani Maluleke wrote to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Thoko Didiza, requesting her to use her legislative intervention in the case of 10 municipalities that failed to submit annual financial statements for the year under review. Head of the National Audit in the AG's office, Bongi Ngoma, says 2 municipalities are yet to submit, while the audits for 4 others are still being processed and another has been concluded.
Anticipating a question by Honorable Mende that says, you've got the powers now, what have you done with these powers around these ones? So we have notified on all of these for outstanding submission of annual financial statements. So we have used our powers, Chair, which is why the trend, as I started earlier on, you would have noted that the trend has been reducing over the years. It has been as a result of the effectiveness of the material irregularities in those instances.
Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says government has set a goal of testing 5 million people for TB each year. This is part of government efforts to reduce new TB infections and curb deaths. This comes ahead of World TB Day next month. Motsoaledi was speaking to the media in Johannesburg earlier.
We want to test the whole family. That's what we're going to do. One member in this family has been tested for TB, is positive, whether on treatment or not, but we know that there is one member. Let's test the whole family. We are further going to test in communities that we know to be vulnerable. And we want to say, if you are HIV positive, allow us to test you for TB, because most of the time they go together. We're also going to say, anybody who have been treated for TB and cured, we'd like to follow them for 6 months and for another 6 months.
Ekurhuleni Metro Police have dispersed and are back at work. This follows an agreement that the Ekurhuleni Mayoral Committee and Union SAMU promised to look into the EMPD's grievances from tomorrow. The Metro Police officers took to the streets today to protest over salary adjustments, among other things. SAMU's Mpomiso says if their demands are not met in 7 days, they will return to the streets.
We met with the MMCs there in the chamber, and we agreed on the process flow of the meeting that they are still going to meet as the mayoral committee with the mayor, and then tomorrow we are going to reconvene again. It will be the SAMU in the forefront and these workers in terms of their reps as well. They will be joining the meeting in order to forge a way forward.
Police are preventing angry community members to take their protest action to Botterville town in the Free State. The residents of Hotsong complain about lack of service delivery in the area. Schools and businesses have been closed due to the protests. They burned tires outside Nala municipality offices. They demand that the municipality mayor, municipal manager and the CFO be removed as they accuse them of corruption. The residents say the council has not been seating for 9 months except for special sittings. Police are monitoring the situation. Air attacks between Russia and Ukraine have continued after President Vladimir Putin rejected a comprehensive ceasefire and phone call with President Donald Trump. The U.S. says ceasefire negotiations will continue in Saudi Arabia on Sunday. The BBC